Hey, folks, it's Steve from Rebel Rock Radio, and with me is JD.
As
And
always.
so, this is something new we decided to try out, kind
Mhm.
of a counterpart to the Batcave series we have going on. So, in the Batcave, me and Blue talk about all kinds of Batman related stuff. Um, It is it's meant for the YouTube channel, but the patrons get early access to this. So if you are watching this first, you are a patron, and thank you very much.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so you got anything to add, JD?
No, hope you enjoy it. I know a lot of this information might be redundant for those of you who are huge DC and Superman fans, as am I and Steve. But we thought we'd go through some details, some things, maybe some stuff you didn't know. I'm sure there's comic book lore that I probably don't know, and hopefully you'll find this entertaining. Hope you'll find this a little something different. Normally we do for those of you who know us, our normal forte is Star Wars and things like that, but we're always trying to branch out into other things. And since Steve didn't know that I was as big a fan of Superman, probably not as big as he is, but I'm still a huge Superman fan. So we thought we'd give this a shot, and hopefully you folks enjoy and don't be shy. Leave some feedback. Let us know if there's some things that you'd like to talk about or focus on when it comes to the Man of Steel and Superman. So
Heck yeah.
uh, here we go.
So I thought how we would start is we would do it kind of similar to the way we do the Batcave. Um, First, we go over any Superman related news that came aboard over. Well, with the Batcave, we do it. We kind of have been doing it once a week, so I'm going to kind of stick to the um, what has been new over the last week as far as Superman news. Um, so the only news that really jumped across my desk was an announcement from James Gunn, who is kind of spearheading the new DC media universe as far as movies and TV.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm glad you didn't call it the reboot.
it's
That's what some people are saying, reboot. I'm like, is it? Is it really? Maybe it's just the latest
for the most
iteration of
part,
the
it
super.
kind of is. He is rebooting mostly everything. Um, but yeah, James Gunn, who, if you don't already know, he was the guy that directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Um, I think that's his really big claim to fame. But I kind of refer to him as the Kevin Feige of the DCU. Um, so
And he
anyway, he
did.
made an announcement. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, he did such a good job with the Guardians of the Galaxy
He did.
because people didn't really know who the Guardians of the Galaxy was when the Guardians came out. They're like, who are these guys? What do we want? Why are they special? What do they have to do with the DC universe? And by the time it was over with, people, I mean, you know who Groot is, you know who Rocket is, you know Gamora, Star Lord, you know all these characters now, and they're beloved now in
Yeah,
the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I have faith that hopefully he'll be able to do the same thing. We'll see. See how it goes.
I'm optimistic.
I am optimistic.
So the announcement he made is in reference to the DC opening logo. So you know the MCU has their logo that they use for these, and
Mm-hmm.
DCU seems to be using this logo here. And James Gunn is referring to this logo as our MGM Lion. Um, so if you have watched, by this time, you may not have watched this yet. But the Creature Commandos is a brand new animated series that is kind of the launch point for James Gunn's DCU. And if you did watch it, you will see that logo shows up at the beginning. And so yeah, he's using that character with the with the chains, or not the chains, hips on hands on his hips.
The Superman pose.
So actually, there is supposed to be, maybe it's not in this article, but there is supposed to be, probably have to find a video of it somewhere. It's actually a GIF, whatever you want to call it, of Superman busting through a set of chains and then putting his hands on his hips. So this picture is only the ass end of that logo. But yeah, that will be featured in movies and television shows, as far as what James Gunn is saying. So
now that's not the original 1938 edition of Superman, is it? Now that's when he actually got his own series. Well, that's the one. That's the character model for his own series, or am I off on that?
I don't know. I think that's from the original. I don't think it's from the original Action Comics, but that might be from the original
animated TV show.
Well, let's see. Oh, I didn't think about that. It might be. Actually, I'm looking at Superman #1 from 1939. It's pretty close.
Okay.
Looking at their faces, that's pretty close.
Okay.
In any case, that is the news per se that we've got. The other thing that we do on Batcave is I talk about any new, like on the Batcave, I talk about any new Batman or Batman adjacent comic books that have come out that week. So I thought I'd do the same, but what I'm not sure of is, do I talk about last week's or do I talk about this week, since we're doing this on Monday? I guess I'll do this week. I think I'll do this week. So these would be the books that are coming out that are Superman or Superman adjacent comic books that are coming out on Wednesday, December 11th. So the first one, and I'm just going to do a share screen here. The first one is going to be Action Comics number 1079.
Looks like you got a lot of Superman on that one, or super.
Yeah, so you've got
super men or super people, or how do you ever you want to call it?
Well, what you've got here, you've got Supergirl, and you've got you got Jonathan Kent. I don't remember what he's going by now. And then you've got Superboy, who is Connor. And I don't remember who these two are.
So is it his sons, like as in the current Lois and Clark?
Well,
or Lois and Superman.
The comic
Lois
book, he only has one son.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't have Jordan and Jonathan. He just has Jonathan.
Okay.
And it's been that way for probably a good decade. So yeah, this one is Action Comics number 1079. And then actually there's only one other one coming out this week, and it is Superwoman special #1 preview. So, well, it says preview, but this one doesn't say anything about a preview. Oh, you know what? That just means it's a preview of Superwoman special #1. Okay. Got it.
Oh, okay.
So if you weren't already aware, that either you, JD, or those of you watching, the show. And this is something that did happen fairly recent in the comic books, but Lois Lane has superpowers. Like I said, this is very, very recent, like less than a year old. And she goes by Superwoman. So this is, as evidenced by the number one, a new comic book. And being that it's a special, I don't know if this is an ongoing thing or not.
So, like a backstory on her, do we know how she obtained her powers, or?
Yes. I don't think it's probably not going to. Well, you know what? This special is probably going to assume that you didn't read the events that led up to how she got her powers. So it looks like this is, because it says the amazing story of how Lois Lane got her superpowers.
Oh. So this story might actually change. It might actually bring different context to it, maybe.
Well, it may go into more detail, or it is assuming that, I think what they're trying to do here is a jumping off point so that those who have not read any of those can jump in and find out how all this happened.
Me.
Yeah. So also, as the synopsis shows here, again, if you didn't already know, Lois Lane is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. She took over for Perry White. So yeah, that is all we have for our news. And so I guess we can kind of jump in to our main topic now.
Very cool.
And that is, who is Superman? So I guess the idea is just kind of go into his background and just kind of like a Superman 101, if you will. So what was your first experience with Superman? Like comics, movies, anything at all, like anything goes. What was your first experience?
I knew I have to think about this. I knew who Superman was because I had a family member who was into Superman, but I did not read any of the comics. And then one day we sat and we actually watched when HBO first came about. We actually sat down and watched Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve. And after that, I thought it was great. I loved the Superman movie, and I think we've discussed that in the past. I think we've had shows from our Rebel Rock Radio general discussions and live talks that we've talked about Superman the movie. Absolutely loved the movie. Absolutely was just, I thought it was great. I thought it was the awesomest thing I'd ever seen. I was a very young kid when I saw it. So whenever I got a chance to pick up a comic and watch and read about it, or just read some of the adventures, I did. I guess my first full-fledged exposure would have been the Christopher Reeve Superman the movie.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I watched. I knew that there were Superman comic books out there. Didn't read any because at the time I wasn't really reading comic books at that time. But I knew there were Superman comic books. I knew that's where he came from. But yeah, it was the 1978 Superman Christopher Reeves. I gotta say, I liked it. I remember watching it, but I didn't really get into the character until Superman 2.
Yeah.
Like 78, I was 6 years old, so not really. I was like, okay, yeah, Superman, that's cool. But by 1980, when Superman 2 came out, I was a little bit more aware of things. And there was a lot of product placement in. So my mom worked at a department store, and we were living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But there was a lot of product placement in her store. But also, strangely enough, right next to her department store, the one she worked at, there was a grocery store. And there was a lot of product placement there too. So it was kind of hard at the time not to see. Okay, so Superman 2. What? Okay, so this is interesting. And I did go see that one in the theater, and I really loved it. I was like, man, this is awesome.
Well, and
Uh,
I'm kind of the same way, except I was hooked from the point when I saw Superman 1, because I got, like I said, I got to see it on HBO, and then I watched the second one on HBO as well. And they
yeah,
did like one of those back-to-back double feature kind of things.
yeah,
And I was hooked because the original Superman was just the helicopter scene,
hmm,
the fact that he turned the world backwards in order to save Lois Lane and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I
yeah,
was hooked. I was like, dude, that's just outstanding. And then when I saw Superman 2 and just the dynamic
yeah,
that they went through, and then everybody that I knew who knew Superman was like, oh, yeah, you don't know who General Zod is, you don't know about the background of Krypton, blah 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 blah. And I'm going, oh, that's crazy. And so they would let me read some of the comics that had to do with, who these folks were, and it just became a rabbit hole after that.
yeah. No, I remember that I liked the first one, but it really was the second one that hooked me. I
Mhm.
thought General Zod was badass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
was awesome.
I'm gonna throw it out there though. I thought you might have to help me with this.
Ursa,
No, the other guy, the guy that didn't talk, the kind
Nod,
of muscle. Nod, yes, Nod.
yeah.
I actually thought he was like just cool as crap.
Yeah, I just kind
Yeah.
of, gravitated towards Zod. He was just badass. But
Yeah.
that being said, like comic book wise, um, strangely, I didn't start reading any of the Superman comic books until it was shortly before the death of Superman.
Mm.
There was other comic books I was reading and just never really got around to reading any Superman comic books. But started kind of shortly before the death of Superman came out. And then, of course, Death of Superman came out, and I mean, I was in, oh geez, when did that come out? That was, I want to say
93.
1990. Hold on.
I think it was 1993, but I could be wrong.
You might be right. You might be right. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come
Now, I
on.
couldn't tell you a month it came out, but I know I was in high school.
1992.
1992. Okay.
Yeah. December 1992. Huge crossover. Several comic books were involved.
Mm-hmm.
The main writer, at least to me, the main writer was Dan Jurgens.
Mm-hmm.
There were some other writers for some of those other books, but Death of Superman was that whole storyline was kind of what I mean. I had read prior to that, but that was really the storyline that brought it home as a comic book for me.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I want to point out, to this day, Dan Jurgens is still my absolute favorite Superman writer.
Mm.
He is. There's been a lot of them. There have been a lot of them, but Dan Jurgens is definitely one of my favorites. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be. I think there's something he's writing right now, and I can't remember if it is Superman or not. What is Dan Jurgens writing? No, maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I thought he was writing something else. I mean, I know he's still writing, but I don't think it's Superman. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dan Jurgens is
I
He
did
was,
I did
he was
not own any of the comics before that. I just read off of what my buddy had.
yeah, yeah.
And when Death of Superman came out, like I said, I had my buddy. He went and picked up a copy. He's like, I'm going to go tomorrow and pick up a copy. And I gave him money that I had saved up from like birthdays and stuff like that. And I gave him some money and I said, well, hey, would you pick me up one too? And he found the black sleeve one with the dripping Superman logo and the armband and the actual comic in it and everything. And I have that stored in a safe space somewhere. I gotta find it. But I'm pretty sure I know where it's at because I'm pretty sure it's with uh um I have it along with the Ring of the Superman, which is the follow up, Funeral for a Friend, Doomsday Origins, and then um some of the other corresponding ones that went along with that, like the Green Lantern version of the events. Because for those of you who know, the comics kind of bounced around to different medium, like Green Lantern and a few other places. And it
Hmm.
was like Steve said, a huge crossover event. There was so many superheroes that were involved
Oh
and
yeah,
got pretty messed up over the whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when that event happened. It was just huge. I mean, all the
Hmm.
comic book nerds were. That's all they talked about. They're going to kill Superman.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there was the whole every comic book shop had the big event, and yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but so of course, and I think we've talked about this on an episode. Um, Actually, it may have been a patron exclusive episode. I don't remember. But Superman debuted in Action Comics #1. The cover date of that was June 1938, but it was actually published in April 1938. So Superman's birthday is essentially April 18th,
Hmm. I think
1938.
we did I think we did like an anniversary
I
episode
think we did.
or a birthday episode of Superman or something like that.
I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Created by Jerry Siegel, who was the writer, and
Hmm.
Joe Shuster, who was the artist. And anytime you see either a comic book or a movie or an animated special or a live action thing, you're always going to see this created by, because that's I guess that's how that's how iconic Superman is, because they've got to credit the people who created him. Because
Hmm.
really, I mean, he was really the first superhero in comic books.
Hmm.
Um, and so these guys created. I mean, if we're being real here, Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel. If not for them, I, comic books would not be where they're at now.
Hmm.
I mean, they were kind of the launching pad for pretty much everything you're reading now in superhero related comic books. Um,
Yeah, because
but
I mean, Superman bred things like, I mean, and to know how big the involvement is, I mean, probably there's pretty deep dive you could go into over just how comics came to be and how Superman affected it and how DC, became a thing, and then how Marvel became a thing and all that kind of stuff. But and there's been times where the DC and the comic universes have kind of gone downhill, which is one of the reasons why if I remember correctly, one of the reasons why they even created the Death of Superman, because comics were starting to fall off and people were kind of going away from it. And they needed something in a major event, a major villain that could actually take out Superman. Because, I mean, he was always there to save the day. He was always there to figure out how to beat a lot of other people, and to actually be able to kill Superman, and it was a shock to people, and the people who had seen the movies through and through. uh it was just like, wait, what? And it was all of a sudden it was an interest, and everybody took an interest in comics and things like that, which kind of put DC back in the map as far as being able to make comics and be people interested and get a whole new group of people interested in actually reading comics and see what the value in them is. And I would even say that they kind of followed suit with the Bane trilogy. When they figured out how successful the Death of Superman was, they actually brought in the Bane trilogy so they could
Oh,
reinvigorate,
Nightfall. Yeah.
yeah, Nightfall, and bring, to show that Batman could be taken out, and to see that there was a villain in his side that could do the same thing. And maybe not as, I don't know, maybe you know better. It might not have been near as popular as the Death of Superman, but it still really kind of was a kicking off point. And I think Marvel got to the point where they didn't do anything dramatic like that. But I think what helped Marvel was actually being sold, and they started making movies when it came to Marvel. That's what really, I think, saved Marvel. I mean, to be honest.
So here's my theory on Death of Superman versus Nightfall.
Hmm.
Um, they came out so close to each other. I think had Nightfall come out first, it probably would have been a much bigger deal. Uh, Death of Superman came out first. Now, that being said, Nightfall was a pretty huge deal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, he wasn't the first superhero. He was close,
Hmm.
uh, but um, but yeah, Death of Superman ran between 92 and 93. Actually, did it run into 94 at all? Nope. It lasted from December 92 to October 93, so almost a year. And then Nightfall ran from 93 to 94, April 93 to August 94.
Mm.
So it actually lasted longer than a year.
Right.
Because that was a huge crossover. Well, crossover as far as the Batman adjacent comics go,
Hmm.
but yeah, Death Superman, I'd have to agree, was probably a much bigger deal. Number
Hmm.
one, because it came out first, but also because it was Superman, and I mean, he
You
really
just
is.
had you had the pedigree.
Yeah, yeah,
You had the pedigree, and at the time, you had so many more Superman movies than you did. Like, I mean, yeah, you had Adam West Batman and stuff like that, but
yeah, yeah.
you didn't. You had, what was it by then? Let's see, what was it? 89 is when the
You had
original
yeah, you
Michael
had the
Keaton
first.
Batman.
Yeah, you had Batman, and then Batman
I
Returns came out in 92. So yeah, it had been out already as well.
Yeah. So by then you had like two really cool Batman movies, but as far as the comics was concerned, I think people's interest in it wasn't as high.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which is disappointing because I mean he's got an awesome pedigree too, as far as
He does.
Batman versus villains and things like that. But Superman.
Well, and here's the thing: if you walk into pretty much any comic book shop, you are going to notice that there are a hell of a lot more Batman comic books than there are Superman comic books.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
and
I would definitely argue cinematically over the years, Batman's pedigree when it comes to stories that are more interesting for the non-comic book crowds are definitely more interesting. I think have definitely catched on better than Superman's,
mhm,
because it's the Dark Knight. He's got his villains are interesting. I mean, his being able to do things and being able to toy with his conscience as far as like killing people and how he dispenses his justice, as opposed to Superman's, who has just unlimited strength, be able to fly, blah blah blah. I think Batman's a more grounded superhero, where Superman is just pure strength, pure ability to fly, the moral character and everything like
yeah,
that. I mean, Batman is just There's so much more. There's so much more story and conflict there that I think. That's just me.
Yeah. So here's some stuff that if you don't already know this, then we're really getting into 101 here. Superman was born Kal-El on the planet Krypton. His parents, Jor-El and Laura, sent him to Earth before the planet was destroyed. He landed in and grew up in Smallville, Kansas, and was adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent, who named him Clark. And then as time progressed, he moved to Metropolis and became a reporter for the Daily Planet. So that is his bio in a nutshell.
A very quick and dirty version of it.
Quick and dirty version, yes. There are a lot of origin stories out there. Just because they've been rebooted and rewritten and just what have you.
Which, as the episodes go along, we can talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on three of them, but only. I mean, basically, I'm just going to kind of mention their names for the most part. If we decide to later, we can go into more detail. The first, there are others. Keep in mind, there are others, everybody. So if I miss one, it's not because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just because these are the three that I think are the most
well known. Well known.
Well known, yeah, iconic, you might say. The first one came out in 1986. It was a limited series called The Man of Steel, written by John Byrne. And this was the reboot that happened after the mid-'80s series Crisis on Infinite Earth. Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that one was 6 issues long. So that was the first one. And then hopefully I've got my chronology right. Hopefully I remember which one came out first. Actually, you know what? Since I've got the internet at my disposal, I am going to make sure I tell you which one came out first, so I don't sound like an idiot. Okay, no, I was actually right. Damn it! Why do I second guess myself? Okay, the first one, or the second one rather, came out in 2003. It was written by Mark Waid. It was a 12-issue limited series, and it was called Superman Birthright. And when it came out, it was decided that this was going to be Superman's canonical origin story. And it really got into his relationship with Lex Luthor. But yeah, Birthright. Good one. I suggest reading it. But a few years later, 2009, we get another 6-issue limited series written by Jeff Johns, illustrated by Gary Frank. And this one became the definitive origin, and it was called Superman Secret Origin. So this one followed another huge crisis event in DC Comics called Infinite Crisis. And this one actually started with it spent a lot of time with Clark as a preteen Superboy. But in any case, as far as I know, this is the current canon origin story. That I might be wrong about. There might have been, because there's a huge gap in my Superman reading in the 2010s. So I don't know. Anyway, so currently there are actually only 2 Superman comics running, like main what's the word I'm looking for? Not main, ongoing series. And those are Action Comics and Superman. But do you know, are there any story arcs that you can think of off the top of your head that you would say you would call essentials other than what we've already talked about?
To be honest, after the like I said, the death, the reign of the Superman, the origins of um the origins of Doomsday and things like that, like back in the 90s. I kind of kept up a little bit, but then I like shortly after I went into the military, so I kind of
Yeah.
lost my focus on it, and so after that, I kind of lost track of everything, and I felt kind of like lost in it, so I really didn't
Mhm.
pick it up that much, other than
Okay.
to watch just some of the TV shows that had come out and the continued movies and some of the a few things in the animated series and things like that. So as far as like comic book style, no, I can't think of any right at the
Okay.
moment. And I know that leaves a big, huge gap from like the
It is.
90s to now.
That's okay though. But
That's a huge gap. That's a huge gap
yep.
for me. But like I said, I tried to keep up with it like when I was in high school and stuff like that because I had a friend who was really into it. And but after that, and like I said, between that and the military and having other things, a lot of things going on at once, I really kind of lost my way with it, if you will.
Yeah. Um, a few that I would. There's a lot of them out there, but a couple of them I'd say that are pretty important. If you want to get, if you're new to Superman and want to get into some stuff, what we've already mentioned, Birthright, Secret Origin, Man of Steel, Death of Superman, All-Star Superman is a good one to check out. It was written by Grant Morrison. That one came out in the mid 2000s. Oh Jesus! It went in for probably like 3 years.
Hmm.
I think it was 12 issues long. That one's a good one. Superman Red Sun. While it's not really an origin story, I mean, it is an origin story, but it's an origin story for, it's almost like a what if. Like what? So Red Sun is what if Superman, instead of being raised in Smallville, Kansas, had landed and was raised in the Soviet Union.
Hmm. But see, I saw that series and I kind of looked at a few of the comics on it, but I really didn't get a chance to read the full thing because I thought that was kind of funny. It was a little interesting just to see, what would happen if he'd have fallen if he'd have grown up somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, if we ever do an episode on that one,
Hmm.
Blue is probably going to want to jump in on that one because he really likes this story.
Mm.
And it's really good. It was published in 2003. There's only 3 issues, so it's really not that long. And it was written by Mark Millar, or Miller. Maybe I pronounced that wrong. I don't know. Miller. Yeah, I guess it's Miller, but it's
Hmm.
spelled Millar. But yeah, it's a good one. Another one I would say, not necessarily essential reading, but if you are wanting to jump on Superman storyline right now, like as it's going on right now, I would highly suggest that you read a story arc called House of Brainiac. This was also a crossover event. Not very old at all. It started in April of this year, 2024. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5. Make more sense here in a minute. There are 4.5 titles involved. It was a crossover between Action Comics, of course, Superman, and then there were some tie-ins with Green Lantern, and then Power Girl, and then there was a Superman House of Brainiac special. So that's the half. Several different writers, mostly Joshua Williamson and Jeremy Adams. But as the title suggests, it's has a lot to do with Brainiac, of course. But there is actually a I don't know if it's published in hardcover yet, though. There is a collection that puts it all together. If you don't want to read if you don't want to read them single issues, if you want to read them all in one collection. Again, I don't think it's actually out on like soft cover or hardcover. I don't think the collection is actually, you can't go to a comic book shop and buy the collection. I think it's digital only right now, but again, this one, it ran from April to June 2024. So it's really not that old. But if you wanted to jump in on Superman now and don't care about getting into the eons and eons of backstory, that is a good one to get you started with the current run.
I did think of one right off the top of my head or that I was sitting there scanning, like trying to figure out, because you said which one stuck out to me. I did read a little bit when they did the Jim Lee covers. Now I don't remember what series that was specifically, but when they did the Jim Lee covers of Superman, that was cool because the artwork was fantastic, and I thought he was a very good artist because he did like
yeah, let me
I think
see
he
if I
did
can
some
remember.
Spawn. He did some Spawn stuff, and when like before Spawn became a movie and stuff, I was reading some of the comics from Spawn and different ones like the Dark Horse, I think it is,
Yeah.
and I read a bunch of that, and then I found out he was going to be doing a Superman run of his artistry through Superman. Now that one was a really cool run because I enjoyed the artwork immensely. It was great,
Yeah.
very good artwork. I thought it was really cool artwork.
Give me just a moment. I found 2 of them, and I'm gonna. They're in the wrong format, of course, so I have to. So I have to
The other
read.
one I did watch a little bit of, or I did kind of read a little bit of, that I can think of, is the run that they did when Superman actually changed his entire outfit and he went electric.
Okay.
When he did the blue suit with
Yeah.
the white S and all that
Superman
because he
Blue,
had to
Superman
battle
Red.
Imperiex. Yeah, Superman Blue, Superman Red when he had to battle Imperiex.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I did see a lot of that too.
That's yeah, those are pretty, I don't know if I'd call them iconic, but they are definitely interesting if you are getting a wild hair and really want to get some interesting stories going. Yeah, those are good. Okay, so all right, so the first one I've got a picture of now that I'm done reformatting it. That's awesome. Was Superman number 204. This one originally came out. Is that the right one? That is not the right one. Oh man, where? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Superman Volume 2, with a cover date of June 2004. It was published in April 2004. Oh, I thought I had the picture up already. No, I didn't. Right here. This is probably the most iconic of the covers, of the Jim Lee covers.
Yeah.
I would love to have a poster of this one.
Oh, I would too. I think actually Sideshow Collectibles had or did have a version of that you could buy that was a statuette of that, and I would love to own that.
Yeah.
That is just freaking cool and iconic.
Yeah. And then the other one that I think is really iconic is actually the next issue of the same series, Superman number 205. And that one's pretty badass too.
That was pretty cool too. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to say, Jim Lee, if I had to name a comic book artist that is my favorite, like right now, without thinking about it, I'd have to say Jim Lee is the one. He has done some not only with Superman, but he's done some pretty amazing Batman artwork too. In fact, if I am not mistaken, and I really should.
He's done some Batman runs. He's done some X-Men runs.
He did. He did the artwork for Batman Hush, which is we had this conversation earlier. Not you and I, but as far as favorite Batman story arcs goes, Batman Hush is actually my favorite Batman story arc. But yeah, Jim Lee did the artwork for that, and it's just amazing. But yeah, this run he did of Superman, Jim Lee did some pretty amazing.
The stuff that he did for Spawn and like the Dark Horse, the Dark Horse comics and all the ones that he did there. Those are freaking. I mean, they're amazing. It's amazing artwork.
Yeah. So before we call it quits for the night, I did want to, there's a couple other topics I wanted to briefly discuss. First one being Superman in film. So like just kind of some of the iterations that we've got. So there were some old ones. There was in 1948. There was the original Superman film that starred Kirk Allen, and then there was Kirk Allen was also in a 1951 called Atom Man versus Superman, and then you had George Reeves, who's 1951 Superman and the Mole Men. So those were the early live action Superman movies, but the first that you could say were like blockbusters would be the 1978 Richard Donner Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. And then he also did Superman 2, which was 1980, Superman 3, which was 1983, and as goofy as it was, I still liked it. And then 1987, Superman 4 came out. That was also Christopher Reeve. That movie was horrible. I wish it did not happen.
I still like it.
I did not.
I still liked it. Okay. Let me just say that I liked that one better than I liked 3. Hot take.
Wow. No,
Hot
man.
Take.
No.
I like that one. Even though I like the rhetoric between him and Richard Pryor in Superman 3, I still liked Superman 4 better than 3.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't like that one. in 2006, we get Superman Returns, which basically the premise of that is that Superman 3 and Superman 4 did not happen. After Superman 2, Superman kind of disappears and then comes back like 5 years after Superman 2. And that's when we get Brandon Roth. I didn't hate this movie. I thought it was okay.
I like the idea of them picking up where they left off. I didn't like the fact that they canceled out 3 and 4. I just didn't appreciate that part of it. If they were going to do a continuation, they should not have like cut the movies right in the middle and said, well, 3 and 4 didn't exist. They should have been like after 4, something happened and he left and blah, 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 blah.
I understand why they did it. The 3 and 4 were not very popular.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the thing, is that they weren't very popular. They were not well received.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we have our reasons and our discussions on which ones we like, which one of the two we like better.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like I said, I just think it was wrong for them to dismiss it, but at the same time, it was confusing.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to do everything they could to write a really good story that would reinvigorate the interest in Superman, which I think it did. But I think Brandon Roth and Brandon Roth. No, not Kevin Spacey. Yeah, to heck with him.
I thought you were talking about Lex Luthor. Okay.
No. The girl that played Lois Lane.
No. Her name was Kate Bosworth.
Kate Bosworth. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I was no.
You didn't like her?
I didn't like her as Lois Lane.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think they kind of got. I hasten to say it, but I think they kind of got screwed in the deal because they were trying to pick up where the old ones left off, and I think that was not only a mistake, but I think it was kind of people were like, why? They're old. They leave them the way they were. Everybody was like, we like Christopher Reeve. We don't want it to change. We're not really happy with the fact that Brandon Roth's trying to pick up where Christopher Reeve left off. It was like, how do you exchange somebody?
I think Brandon got a bad rap, but I think he did a good imitation of the Christopher Reeve Superman.
Oh, I agree. 100%. I think they tried to make it too much like the original. I think was part of the issue. They tried to make it too much like the original. And he did a really good job. I think it was the premise and the context and the story and the chronological order that it came in. I think that was some of the bigger issues. And like I said, people were so like, Christopher Reeve was iconic. His role as portrayal of Superman was so iconic. And to bring somebody like Brandon Roth in and go, okay, now you have to be that guy. People are like, no,
that's
it
part
didn't
of
work.
The problem. He had some heavy shoes, some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that's why I kind of feel like he kind of got screwed because he as a movie, and if you watch it just him, I think it was fun. I think it was fine. But like I said, I think the timeline, I think the context, I think the storyline itself was just, they should have just done a straight up, like a separate story. Like they could have done the story without trying to put it in that content, in that thing. And I think if you kind of look at it that way and not think of it as a continuation of the original Superman, Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman movies, I think you're better for it and not try to make it to be that way. But like I said, it's pretty much kind of a remake of the original, if you really kind of look at it.
Yeah. In any case, so after so that one came out in 2006. Also in 2006, they released Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. Because when Superman 2 first came out, they had Richard Donner had started started making it. But then I don't remember what the deal was, but he left and then was replaced by a guy named Richard Lester. I liked the Donner cut. I thought it was pretty amazing.
Oh, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I like the Donner cut. Yeah. Donner cut was awesome.
So as far as live action in theaters, the next one doesn't come around until 2013. And that is when we get Zack Snyder's Man of Steel with Henry Cavill. Let's not get into it.
Is that another one you didn't like?
We'll talk about that when we do a Man of Steel episode.
Okay.
Yes and no. That's my simple answer. Liked it, yes and no. I don't think Zack Snyder has any business doing a Superman movie, but anyway.
Okay. Hot take. We'll talk about it. I know we're going to talk about it later. Hot take. But Christopher Reeve, number 1, Henry Cavill, number 2. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Here's the thing. Henry Cavill would have made a great Superman had somebody else written it and directed it.
I think he still did make a great Superman. It would have been even more.
It got too dark.
That I agree with.
Superman is not a dark character.
No, but yeah. Well, okay. We'll discuss it later. Preview for future episodes, people. Preview.
Yes. So moving on, the next Superman that we're going to get is in the James Gunn DCU. And as far as we know, it's just simply going to be called Superman. And its scheduled release date is July 11th, 2025. I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because I'm just optimistic about. Let me rephrase. I am cautiously optimistic that James Gunn is going to do this character justice.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with that. As far as other live action,
the only thing that worries me about the Superman James Gunn edition, the thing that bothers me the most is that there are a lot of people that think Henry Cavill got a bad rap on the deal.
Well, he did.
And he did. So I think that I'm worried. But everybody liked Henry Cavill, so they think that Henry Cavill should have just been moved into the James Gunn version. And that's a lot of the commentary that I've been seeing online is that they just should have moved Henry Cavill into the James Gunn version and then let him do his thing.
If they were going to reboot it, yes.
Yeah.
If they're still planning on rebooting it, yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And it kind of depends on which direction he goes. If he goes to a reboot, then yeah, that might have been weird. But at the same time, I still think they could have made it work with Henry Cavill. But I think that's why this movie may not get the fair shake it deserves, is simply because of everybody's opinion about what happened with Henry.
I don't know. There seems to be a lot of love for James Gunn out there.
Oh, I 100%. And I think that's what's going to help it, is the fact that he did such a good job with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
excited.
Yeah. So there's also been some live action Superman on TV. Most notably, let's see, there was Adventures of Superman, which ran from 1952 to 1958. There was a Superboy show, which ran from 1988 to 1992. I did not ever watch that.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've read about it, from what I've read about it, there were actually 2 different actors that played the character. So that's a little weird. Like one of them was in season 1, and there was another guy that was in the additional seasons. But I never watched it. Let's see. Then you had Lois and Clark from 1993 to 1997. That was with Dean Cain.
I still have the DVD collection of that, 4 seasons.
Um,
I watched that show religiously.
Really?
I really did.
I may have to go. See, I watched a few episodes when it was out, and I was like, there were some things that bothered me about it, and I may have to go back and watch again.
Now, I will admit, season 4 was horrid, but the other seasons were actually pretty good.
So, I think based on just memory, I think one of my biggest problems was the character of Lex Luthor. I did not like the character of Lex Luthor in that show.
Yeah, he was the guy that. Yeah, I remember that.
He just didn't do it for me. Now, mind you, I liked his. Okay, I disliked his Lex Luthor a lot less than I disliked the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor.
Oh, yeah, let's not even talk about that. That's the one that we don't have to talk about.
That is the Lex Luthor by which all badness is measured.
Yeah, that Lex Luthor was... Yeah. Now, no, I liked his Lex Luthor. I think his Lex Luthor was more like psychopathic rather than just like criminal intelligence. I think he was just psychopathic in that show. No.
Oh,
the one from Lois and Clark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk about Eisenberg on this show.
No, we don't have to talk about Eisenberg.
Except to say he's bad. Okay.
except to say he was present in the movie. We're not sure why.
It's so bad. Okay. Next live action show that I want to touch on came out in 2001. And okay, this is actually my favorite live action TV Superman. And I'll put Superman in quotes because he barely shows up in the show in general. But I'm referring to Smallville. Smallville ran for 10 seasons. Tom Welling played Clark Kent. And essentially, for all intents and purposes, this was the story of Clark Kent, not necessarily Superman.
This is more of him growing up.
Yeah,
I mean, this is more of him growing up with his powers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I really liked the show. I really liked it.
I did not watch it religiously, but I did catch quite a few episodes of it.
I own a box set. And man, you know what? I bet I could run out in the garage. Nah, I'll save it for another episode. I've got a box. Yeah, I've got a box. It's pretty bad.
We'll compare our box sets, mine of Lois and Clark and yours of Smallville, which is going to be huge.
And then the other one that just ended, was Superman and Lois, which ran for 4 seasons. And when I say just ended, I mean
like last week.
December 2nd is when the last episode aired.
Yeah, like last week.
Yeah. And that was Tyler Hoechlin. Let me see if I can find Hecklin. Yeah, I don't know. Tyler something.
It's only because we don't want to butcher their names.
Yeah. Now, so this story takes place. So Superman has been Superman for a while. And if you've never watched the show, I'm going to give you a little one-on-one on it. So he's been Superman for a while. He's already married to Lois Lane. He already has 2 kids, which on its surface was a little weird. We won't go there. But why is there 2 kids and not just 1? But anyway,
it made it more interesting, Steve.
Yeah.
Come on.
If not, I would say if not for Tom Welling, I would say Tyler is probably my favorite live action Superman. And I mean, that goes for movies too.
You
I
had
know.
me until you said movies too.
I know.
You had me until you said movies too.
Christopher Reeve is great. Christopher Reeve is great. He's awesome. But due to unfortunate events such as timing, he's actually number 3. But he's awesome. He is great. As far as movies go, he is the best Superman.
I can see in the future of these little episodes that we're going to be doing, we are going to have some interesting conversations.
Yeah, I absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, so that was our first episode of Kryptonian Chronicles. Each episode, of course, will have some sort of topic that we think up. It will either be on a comic book or a TV show or a movie or something else that we think up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And we're sure to have people whose interest in Superman is better or as good as ours. And I'm sure we'll have people that'll come in that would love to have commentary. So you'll probably see some guests that'll come in and we'll have discussions on with and things like that. So yeah,
definitely. I already know that my friend Dave is going to want to jump in on an episode. So I don't know what topic he wants to talk about, but in any case, that was our first episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave any comments. Well, that would be for the YouTube folks. You can't really leave comments. Can you leave comments on Patreon? Hell, I don't know.
Yes, you can.
If you're a patron, leave a comment. Tell us what you think. And if you're watching this on YouTube, leave comments too and let us know what you think as well. But yeah, this will be up on our YouTube channel soon, but patrons get early access. So that's it. Any parting thoughts?
Like I said, I think between you and I and our conversations of who we liked and what we liked when it comes to the Superman DC universe all as a whole and all of its iterations, I think there's going to be some interesting future conversations. So I look forward to it. I look forward to discussing the Man of Steel and Superman and all of his names and yeah, it's going to be a good series of conversations, I think.
That's Joe. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on Kryptonian Chronicles.